Alright guys and gals, this is a long playing review for Kung Fu Master on the Amstrad CPC, released by US Gold in 1986. Now, Kung Fu Master, the arcade coin-op by IREM, is the granddaddy of all scrolling beat-em-up brawlers. It is considered by popular consensus to be the very first of its genre, going on to inspire and spawn classics like Renegade, Double Dragon, and eventually Final Fight. I'm going to bring in some footage from the arcade coin-op game now, just so you can see how the original looked like and played before we get to the Amstrad version, for comparison purposes of course. Now, there were 1v1 fighter games before it, but Kung Fu Master introduced the side-scrolling format of beating up gangs of enemies, and also the end-of-level boss with energy meters. The game was inspired by Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan movies. Indeed, in Japan it was released as Spartan X to cash in on the Jackie Chan movie of the same name. Western audiences, and you may be familiar with the movie under its changed name of Wheels on Meals. Although its strongest influence is the Bruce Lee movie Game of Death, where in the last 20 minutes or so of the film, Bruce ascends a building, or pagoda in this game's case, floor by floor, meeting a different and stronger fighter each time until he confronts the big boss at the very top. Which is also the only part of the movie in Game of Death to feature the real Bruce Lee. This was the only footage completed with him in it before his untimely death. The rest of the movie uses a rather unconvincing Bruce Lee stand-in and look-alike. Anyway, that was the main inspiration for designer Takashi Nishiyama at IREM, along with Wheels on Meals, which itself took inspiration from Game of Death, where Jackie Chan in the last part of the movie climbs a castle to rescue Sylvia. We're also rescuing a Sylvia here in Kung Fu Master. Before that, Nishiyama had made the classic Moon Patrol, and after Kung Fu Master he was snapped up by Capcom, where he went and started the whole Street Fighter series, inspired by his boss fights in Kung Fu Master. So yes, Street Fighter came from Kung Fu Master in a way. He also apparently created the famous Hadouken fireball attack for Ryu, or Ryu, however you say it. Now, Trojan was made by him at Capcom in 1986, which is basically a spiritual sequel to Kung Fu Master, and then after that came Vigilante. Even more fascinating, and importantly, beyond starting the whole Street Fighter franchise in fact, is how Kung Fu Master inspired Super Mario Bros. Yes, it's true. Shigeru Miyamoto did the NES and Famicom port of Kung Fu Master, which we will look at later in the video, and it was his work on it building up his technical knowledge of how to do a scrolling action game that gave him the inspiration to expand on this and eventually create Super Mario Bros. For the NES, and the rest, as they say, is history. Also, the composer and sound effects guy here, Masato Ishizaki, would later go on to do all the sound and music for R-Type for IREM. So, quite a legacy here from Kung Fu Master. But this coin-op, released by IREM in November of 1984, in terms of sales, was hugely successful, being one of the top grossing games in Japan in late 1984 and early 1985, and same in the US, where it had massive success, eventually being the second highest earning cab of 1985. Anyway, so I hope you've been paying attention to how the arcade version plays, moves, looks and sounds, as we move on to the Amstrad version here. And here's the box art for the budget re-release on Americana Software, which actually is a sub-label of Mastertronic. And it's not US Gold's like Kicks label. That was before they did Kicks. So Mastertronic got hold of this and re-released it. Right, let's get the game loaded up here, and we get greeted to an okay loading screen. There it is, by C. Thornton. And the Amstrad version has 5 levels with 5 bosses, and then it just loops. We're going to do 2 loops of the game here, so essentially 10 levels. On the second loop through, that's where we're going to bring in some footage of the other conversions of Kung Fu Master and discuss them. We've got some credits here on the high score table. Code by Stevie with help from Colin and Jimmy, and graphics by Craig and Bodie. The best I can find out, Stevie equals Steve Calvert. He also did Rambo First Blood Part 2, which he also used a very similar font and scrolling high score table to this one. And he also did The Awful Highlander. Colin equals Colin Gordon, whose only other game was Rambo First Blood. Jimmy might be Jim Bagley, and he would be a very young Jim Bagley. He's very well known in the retro scene these days, often involved in lots of projects. But he also did Cabal, Midnight Resistance, and Batman the Caped Crusader on the Amstrad. And Craig might be Craig Houston, whose only other games were Rambo First Blood Part 2 again, and working on Sly Spy Secret Agent for Software Creations. Now, as we do controls here, it's very important. Look, notice there's a separate button for punch and kick option, but that's only if you're playing on keyboard. You can't have 2 fire buttons on the joystick for punches and kicks. So if you're playing on the joystick, you're a bit screwed. Because you have to use the space bar to switch between punches and kicks. And certain bosses will need a punch rather than a kick, or vice versa. So I'm playing on keyboard. The default controls are I, J, K, and L for movement, and Q and R. Q for punch, I think, or kick, and A for punch. And there we go. That's the first level, first boss done, and we get into an elevator, a lift. This is the Amstrad version has lifts rather than stairs at the end of a level, and it's the only version to have this. So I'm not sure why they did a lift thing there. They could have easily coded in the stairs like on the original. Now, got to watch out for those orbs that fall from that have like a checkerboard colour effect on them. One of the 3 debris there spewing out from them. If that touches you, it's instant death and loss of life, and start the level again. Now we just got past the orbs and balls there on level 2, just like the arcade, and now we get a few enemies before we fight the level 2 boss. There he is. He throws like a boomerang. Duck down and use punches, and he's gone up fairly quickly. So some of these bosses are very quick to dispatch if you know what to do. Level 3. I should warn you though that the level 4 boss is known to be quite glitchy and buggy. Oh, if you're ducking down and those little dudes jump up, just literally stand up. You kind of do like a headbutt move, as I think a fellow YouTuber Cholo CPC called it. Those knife dudes are the most annoying. Usually, if the one spawns, I kind of just stay in the same place where I am and make sure I take him out before moving on. Looks like he might disappear. No, he's come back again. Stood up there. That took out the little green dude there. Took a little bit of damage from the little green dude jumping on me there. He's the only enemy that actually does any jumping, or rather than just throwing a knife or just running into you to grab you. Jump the knife attack there. So I'm playing it cautious here, not moving on until I've actually got rid of the knife dude there. Here's a level 3 boss, and he's ginormous. Just get in close and use punches or kicks, and we'll get rid of him. If you're too close to him, maybe use the punches, which seem to have maybe a slightly shorter range. But yeah, other than that, oh, we get bees on this level now. In the arcade version, they come through open windows, I think, and then attack you. But in the Amstrad version, they're just there already. So with attacks on enemies, there seems to be a slight control lag every now and again. So you want to be doing like your punches and kicks a lot sooner than you think you need to on enemies to get the timing right. It's kind of a bit awkward. It doesn't feel quite right. Oh, here's this boss here. If you punch his head, it flies off and flies around. So get down low and just use like low punches. You can decapitate the boss, and then the head comes back again. But that boss is known to be glitchy and buggy on the Amstrad version, and it can crash the game if you do something specific. I've never encountered it myself, but it's written on the CPC Power website with screenshots as proof. Here we are, level 5 already. Essentially, what is the final level of the game. Well, it's nice and colourful, even if the colours are not the same as the arcade version. They're far more bolder, bold primary colours, shall we say, on the Amstrad version, rather than the pastely colours of the arcade. There's no music in game, which really sucks. I think it would have been very easy to do that simple loop of music from the arcade. And sound effects are so-so. The scrolling is okay, but it's only got a tiny window to scroll anyway, so it should be alright. There you go. But this is released on the Amstrad in 1986, and we were still getting over the awfulness of Green Berets scrolling. And we didn't have many full scrolling action games on the Amstrad in this time period, so good on them for doing that. Oh, here's the final boss, who's all in yellow, perhaps with perhaps maybe a nod to Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. Who knows? Right, so this boss is the hardest boss of all, and it's ridiculous. Basically, keep spamming low kicks, and they have to be a certain rhythm. You don't just like smack the button like that. You've got to like get a nice rhythm like almost going on the fire button and attacks. So when you finish, every now and again, try a punch, a low punch or a high punch. If that's not taking any damage off him, go back to the low kicks. Keep spamming the low kicks and alternate between standing up and doing punches and kicks. But mostly just keep him like locked there with like low kicks, and you can't do anything. Ideally as well, you need to go into the boss battle here with almost full energy. As you can see, we did, and now we're down to like a third of our energy. He will slowly chip away at your energy anyway. There we go. Level 5 boss done. Did we get an ending? We kind of do. Let's get to the lift. And look who's waiting in the lift there. It's Sylvia. A little animation there, and we give her a hug and a kiss. Ah. And that's the game beat. And then it loops back to level 1, or should we call it level 6 here? I'm going to do another loop of the game to see if it gets any harder. It doesn't seem to. But now we're going to talk about the other versions of Kung Fu Master. Now, ZX Spectrum. I can't decide if this is terrible or somewhat playable and fun. It's mostly on the a bit crap side of things, and Specky magazines at the time thought so too, with Crash giving it 56% and Sinclair User 2 out of 5. The beeping music is bloody awful. Graphically, it's rather unpleasant with lots of colour clash and flickery sprites. It controls okay though. However, you have to hit the spacebar to switch between the punches and kicks like on the Amstrad one. I think I'll take the Amstrad over the Spectrum version. Commodore 64. Well, the C64 version plays really smoothly and is pretty darn fast too. Graphically, it's decent and colourful, although completely the wrong colours compared to the arcade original. The C64 could have done a nice job of emulating the pastel-y shades from that, but instead goes with a yucky green, blue, brown and orange combination. Ugh. But it does have suitably oriental fighting music from the coin-op game, so there you go. The MSX version, this plays, controls and moves reasonably well. It has music from the arcade game and tries to be as faithful as possible. This is pretty good for the hardware and not a specky port for once. It's just a bit odd playing against a black background. Apple II. First time checking out the Apple II, actually. For the system, this is pretty good, but compared to the others so far, this looks a bit naff. I can't honestly tell you how it plays because whenever I tried, I couldn't get the joystick working, nor could I work out the keyboard controls. So what you're watching here is the rolling demo on the title screen. Anyway, black background again, like the MSX, and hardly any sound effects. Probably the weakest version so far. Next up, Atari 2600, believe it or not, and a very impressive port for this ancient console. Bright, colourful graphics, very fast and smooth gameplay, plus it has the arcade music, albeit in simplified form. You honestly couldn't have asked for better. The only annoyance being the controls. You have to be pushing a direction to perform a move. Hitting fire with the stick dead central does nothing, weirdly. Also, you can only jump straight up, not forward or backwards. Now, next, the Atari version on the Atari 7800. Or the Atari 8-bit range. This feels, plays, and also sounds very similar to the 2600 version. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's using the same code base, but just with a graphical lick of paint. Actually, it looks really nice and colourful, and possibly my favourite graphically so far, but it does carry over the annoying controls from the 2600 version. Oh, and he got killed by the level 3 boss, or level 8, but we just did it there. Onto the NES. On the Nintendo Entertainment System, renamed to just Kung Fu. I'm not sure why they dropped the master from the name, but hey, that's Nintendo for you. They always have to be awkward and different. But this is probably my favourite version to play. As fast and smooth as the Atari 7800, but whilst not visually as colourful, it's closer to the arcade and the controls are better. You don't have to push in a direction to perform a move, and unlike pretty much every version here, you can spin around lightning quick to attack in the opposite direction. And this is probably the best version out of all of them, and it was done by Shigeru Miyamoto, who went on to do Super Mario Bros. And was inspired by doing it. It was inspired by his Kung Fu Master conversion to go ahead and do Super Mario Bros. As we talked about earlier in the video. There we go. So moving to the level 5 or level 10 here. Let's talk about magazine reviews. This was reviewed in the August 1986 issue 11 of Amstrad Action magazine. They found the gameplay frustrating and repetitive, but also thought that the enemy behaviour was too random and progressing was down to luck. Well, that's simply not true. In fact, they're very predictable, these enemies. But anyway, they also questioned why there was a lack of music and weren't too keen on the look of it either. And they rated the graphics at 72%, Sonics 47%, grab factor 68%, staying power 77%, with an overall AA rating of 72%. I would say that staying power is lower and grab factor higher, because it's like Kung Fu Master and you want to see it. But then you realise this Amstrad version is a bit shonky, really. It's alright, it does okay. So, for my review, I mean, I'm not too far off Amstrad Action's assessment. Amstrad Kung Fu Master is a perfectly okay port of the coin-op, but nothing more. Graphically, it doesn't really try to match the original, which is a lot more pastely, and here, the CPC version goes for a different colour scheme with bright, bold, primary colours. But the sprites are rather blocky and ill-defined. And it's a shame there's no music, given the original theme was pretty simple and short. The scrolling is okay, but really what lets the game down most is the controls. No option to properly redefine keys, which may have allowed you to put kick on one fire button and punch on the second, which the Amstrad can do, is the first big annoyance. The second is the control lag. There's sometimes a noticeable delay if you're spamming attacks, unless you hit a very precise, slower rhythm, like I'm doing here against this boss, and it's near impossible to spin around on the spot to attack in the opposite direction. You have to stop any attacks and give yourself some breathing space, about maybe a few milliseconds or a second, to turn around before beginning attacking. And that's unforgivable in a game where you're constantly getting attacked from both sides all the time. Hey! There we go, just done it there, second loop. Still though, if you're a fan of this type of game, it's not too bad and some fun can be had. They've got all 5 bosses in and everything else from the arcade, like the vases and the balls that drop from the ceiling and the bees and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10, and it's a percentage score straight on the nose at 70%, but only just. The original may not have aged well, but this version certainly hasn't. And the coin-op is still fun to play, whereas this one, maybe not, maybe not. So there you go, that was Kung Fu Master on the Amstrad CPC from US Gold, who farmed it out to Choice Software via Ocean. And yeah, it gets a straight sort of 7 out of 10, just above average from me. We just killed ourselves there so we can get to the high score table and put our name in there. just to show you that. And there you go. So thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to, please consider supporting me on Patreon and joining the Am Squad if you want to. Lots of different perks, one of them being being able to suggest future videos and live streams and stuff. Otherwise, make sure you drop us a like and a comment on the video. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thank you and goodbye.
So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please click a like below, leave a comment, and also subscribe if you haven't already. And over that way, there's another video for you to check out. Zypho out.